Yes! More spit, Marty. More spit. That'll work. Come on, put your fucking back into it. Attaboy. I can't. Come on, Marty. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Honestly, it happens to a lot of guys. Truly. Not me, of course. Oh.
You think The Boys is all CGI magic and green screen wizardry? Think again. This show uses more practical effects than you'd ever imagine. We're talking real blood pumps, actual prosthetics, and physical puppets that would make Jim Henson proud, if he wasn't already traumatized. Here's the thing that'll blow your mind. When you see Homelander absolutely destroying someone on screen, there's probably a crew member just off camera pumping gallons of fake blood through hidden tubes. When you see the Deep talking to sea creatures, he's literally having a conversation with a green stick. And those epic flight scenes? Yeah, they're just grown adults dangling from wires like sad Christmas ornaments. The contrast between what we see and what actually happens on set is insane. On screen, Homelander looks like an unstoppable god. Behind the scenes, Anthony Starr is doing his best superhero pose while suspended 3 feet off the ground, surrounded by green screens and probably questioning his life choices. But that's exactly what makes The Boys different from every other superhero show out there. So, buckle up, because we're about to pull back the curtain on the blood-soaked, hilariously awkward, absolutely brilliant chaos that goes into making your favorite anti-superhero show. Trust me, you'll never look at Homelander's laser eyes the same way again. Let's talk about that whale scene. You know the one. Season 2, Episode 3, when Kimiko literally punches through a whale and the boys end up covered in whale guts. Fans thought it was all CGI, right? Wrong. The effects team built a massive practical whale section. We're talking thousands of pounds of silicone, fake blubber, and industrial-grade blood pumps. They rigged the entire thing with pressurized tubes that could shoot blood at speeds that would make a fire hose jealous. The actors weren't acting disgusted, they were disgusted. That's real fake blood, people. Sticky, cold, and it got everywhere. Karl Urban said in an interview that he was finding fake whale chunks in his trailer for weeks after that shoot. The practical approach meant the reactions you see, completely genuine. You can't CGI that level of "I hate my job right now" on an actor's face. Now let's talk termite. Season 3 opens with one of the most disturbing scenes in the entire series, and it's basically a puppet show on steroids. They built a miniature set, used practical miniatures for termite, and the gore? That was achieved with precision blood squibs and prosthetic work. The effects supervisor, Stephen Fleet, has said they prefer practical effects because when something is physically there, actors react to it naturally. And he's absolutely right. The visceral nature of The Boys comes from the fact that the blood is actually flying at the actors. They're actually dodging chunks of prosthetic body parts. It's method acting meets horror movie practical effects, and it's genius. Alright, let's get into the real superhero stuff. Homelander's flight scenes look seamless on screen, but behind the scenes, it's a whole different story. Anthony Starr spends hours in what's basically a very uncomfortable harness system. Picture this. He's lifted a few feet off the ground, arms outstretched in that classic Superman pose, and he has to hold it while staying completely still. His face might look intimidating and powerful, but his back is probably screaming. The rig is controlled by a team of operators who can tilt, rotate, and move him to simulate flight. But here's where it gets really interesting. Homelander's laser eyes. On set, Anthony just squints dramatically while wearing tracking markers on his face. Sometimes they use practical light effects, literally just shining red lights in his face to get the reflection in his eyes and the glow on his skin. The actual laser beams? Pure VFX magic added in post-production. But that initial glow? That's often practical. Now let's talk about Starlight. Erin Moriarty's glowing powers look absolutely stunning on screen, but on set, she's surrounded by what basically amounts to very expensive light bulbs and green tracking dots all over her costume. The VFX team uses a combination of practical LED rigs built into her costume and then enhances it digitally. So when you see her eyes glowing white-hot with power, on set she's just wearing contact lenses and squinting into very bright lights. The crew has to wear sunglasses because the practical lights are so intense. Imagine trying to do an emotional scene while you're basically staring into the sun. That's commitment. The genius of the boys is that they layer practical and digital effects. They don't just rely on CGI, which is why everything feels so real and grounded, even when it's completely insane. Oh boy, let's talk about the Deep. Chase Crawford has arguably the most embarrassing BTS footage of any cast member. And honestly, bless him for it. Every single time the Deep has a conversation with a sea creature, whether it's a dolphin, an octopus, or even Timothy the Octopus in that scene, Chase is literally talking to nothing. Or worse, he's having a deep emotional conversation with a green stick with a tennis ball on top. Sometimes they use puppeteers with basic animal puppets for him to react to, but most of the time, it's just a sad man talking to the void. Now let's talk about those gills. The Deep's gills are actually a combination of practical prosthetics and CGI enhancement. During filming, Chase wears prosthetic gill pieces that are glued to his torso. They're articulated and can actually move slightly, which helps sell the effect. But the real magic, the breathing, the pulsing, the gross slime, that's added digitally. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to the octopus scene from season 3. You know the one. The cast has gone on record saying this was one of the most bizarre shoots of the entire series. Chase had to interact with a combination of puppet tentacles and green screen markers while maintaining that intimate energy. In interviews, the cast cannot stop laughing about how absurd it looked on set. Antony Starr said watching Chase film those scenes was the most professional thing I've ever seen an actor do, because he maintained character while the entire crew was losing it behind the cameras. Karl Urban added that he couldn't be in the room during some of the Deep's more romantic scenes with sea life because he couldn't stop laughing. The commitment to selling these ridiculous moments with practical puppets and props before adding CGI is exactly why the Deep's scenes feel so uncomfortably real. Because the actor's reactions are real, even if what he's reacting to is absolutely ridiculous. Now for the best part, when everything goes hilariously wrong. Despite all the planning and professional effects work, the boys' set is apparently a blooper goldmine. Antony Starr, who plays the terrifying Homelander, has admitted that maintaining that menacing character is nearly impossible when things go wrong. There's footage of him mid-threatening monologue when a blood squib goes off too early and completely drenches him. He immediately breaks, starts laughing and yells, "Are you kidding me?" while covered head to toe in fake blood. The crew is dying behind the cameras. Karl Urban as Butcher has some of the best blooper moments because his accent sometimes just disappears mid-scene. There's BTS footage of him delivering an intense line, then immediately going, "Wait, was that British? I don't think that was British," in his normal New Zealand accent. The cast loses it every time. But the absolute best bloopers come from scenes involving the practical effects and puppets. There's footage of a prosthetic head that was supposed to explode dramatically, but instead just kind of deflated sadly. The entire cast couldn't stop laughing for 10 minutes. They had to reset the whole shot. Or when Kimiko's supposed to punch through something and the prop doesn't break. Or when someone's harness malfunctions and they're just slowly spinning in place instead of flying heroically. The gap between what's supposed to look epic and what actually happens on set creates comedy gold. Erin Moriarty said her favorite blooper was when her glowing practical lights short-circuited mid-take and started strobing like a disco ball. She said she felt like a broken ambulance and couldn't keep a straight face. The director kept the take rolling just to see how long she could maintain character, and she lasted about 5 seconds before completely losing it. These moments show that despite the dark, violent, satirical nature of the show, the set is apparently one of the most fun in television. The cast genuinely loves working together, and when you're covered in fake blood talking to puppets all day, you kind of have to have a sense of humor about it. So why does all of this matter? Because The Boys has fundamentally changed how we think about superhero television. While Marvel and DC pump out increasingly CGI-heavy content that sometimes looks like a video game cutscene, the boys went the opposite direction. By combining old-school practical effects with modern VFX, they created something that feels real, even when it's absolutely insane. The blood splatters in ways that CGI blood never quite captures. The gore has weight and texture. The actor reactions are genuine because they're responding to actual physical props and effects. This approach is more expensive, more time-consuming, and way more complicated than just fixing everything in post-production. But it works. The Boys feels visceral and grounded in a way that no other superhero property does. It's a masterclass in how practical and digital effects should work together, not replace each other. The next time you watch The Boys, remember, that's a real blood pump. That's a real puppet. That's a real actor dangling uncomfortably from wires. And that commitment to practical chaos is exactly what makes this show a masterpiece. If you loved learning about the insane behind-the-scenes work that goes into The Boys, smash that subscribe button because we're doing more deep dives into your favorite shows. And drop a comment below. Which character do you think has the most embarrassing BTS footage? My money's on the Deep, but I want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.